Okay. Well, it looks like we still have a few people who are coming in from the waiting room, but I'd like to start the session on protecting Libyan cultural heritage by welcoming all of you who have joined us. Thank you for taking this time here on Saturday in this new virtual conference format to join us and have this time together to discuss some of the current issues that our colleagues in Libya are facing. Of course, you know, at ASOR, our cultural heritage initiatives in recent years has been, you know, very active in Libya, supporting our colleagues as they grapple with a number of challenges, protecting sites and collections, and then extending, you know, a more forthright hand to Libyan public. And we have this tremendous opportunity this morning to be joined by Libyan colleagues from around the country, reporting in from Tripoli, from Benghazi, from Ghadames. I'll just note that, you know, originally we had hoped to have participation from Luigi Orifi at the Libyan Historic Cities Authority in Benghazi, and unfortunately, he's not able to join us due to a health problem. But we have, you know, a number of our key colleagues from around the country who are with us today, and it seems like the net is strong enough right now to enable them to participate. So I just very quickly like to include a word of thanks. You know, none of this work that we've been partnering on in recent years would have been possible without the support of a variety of sponsors, including the Ambassadors Fund for Cultural Preservation at the U.S. State Department, the Cultural Antiquities Task Force, the direct support of our Libya External Office, which is, you know, most recently and you know, most importantly, provided, you know, bursaries, scholarships to support the registration of all of the Libyan colleagues who are joining us today to present their work, as well as some private sources of support from both the Whiting Foundation and the Aleph Foundation in Switzerland. And, you know, our real opportunity here today is to hear directly from our colleagues in Libya about the challenges they're now facing, some of the solutions that they're engaged with to protect, you know, the rich and vast cultural heritage, you know, around the country. So I'll begin this meeting, you know, simply by going through and giving each one of our colleagues a chance to introduce themselves and provide a little bit of background on the projects they've been working on. And then we will convene for a more sort of open discussion. It seems that we have a reasonable number of participants where if you in your chat box raise your hand, I'll be monitoring the chat and we'll try to answer your questions. Just a note, you know, a lot of the participation today does depend on a certain amount of Arabic, English, Arabic translation. So there's going to be a little bit of delay as we, you know, sort of make your questions understood and answered in some cases. But we appreciate your patience. And again, thank you for joining us. So with that, let me just double check that we've got Intisar on the line. يا انتصار تسمعي؟ Oh, let's see here. It looks like they're just joining. يا طلال يعني ممكن تفتح الفيديو والصوت.
حاضر. هتسمعنا الآن يا وليا؟
أيوة. فانتصار أول واحدة.
صار أول واحدة، أوكي. نحن موجودين الآن.
تمام. فيا انتصار يعني ممكن تشرح لنا شوي أكثر إن يعني العمل مع الحقيبة متحفية في طرابلس وما هي أهمية الحقيبة. يعني طبعا هاتي لك يعني دقيقة أو دقيقتين بس كنقطة المقدمة.
مرحبا بكم. بالنسبة للحقيبة المتحفية في خلال هذه الفترة كان لها دور إيجابي ممتاز، خاصة في الظروف الراهنة لوضع البلاد. إن المتاحف مقفلة أمام الزوار، فكانت الحقيبة المتحفية هي البديل عن زيارة المتاحف. كانت ميزتها سهولة نقلها، تحتوي على محتويات الحضارات التي مرت به ليبيا بالكامل، تعتبر تجربة جديدة ملموسة للطلاب، سهولة نقلها غير محصورة على المتخصصين فقط.
يا طلال أنت المترجم ولا أنا؟
والله ممكن both, but of course you are much better than me, William.
تمام. Okay. You know, Intisar again would just like to welcome you all to today's session. She's affiliated with the Libyan Department of Antiquities in Tripoli, and she'd just like to, you know, in a short summary of the work that she presented and that you've all had a chance to enjoy in her lecture, you know, explain that this Suitcase Museum project has been a really powerful way for the Libyan Department of Antiquities to connect with the broader public in Libya at a time when all of their museums are currently closed. And that inside of these suitcases, there are a number of you know, simple devices that help them engage with the public. Things like recent publications about the past in Libya, things like tangible facsimiles of artifacts. And we've really, you know, seen tremendous interest, and it's been an avenue that their, you know, their public authorities, which, you know, again, normally would engage with the public through their museums, have found this alternate way to engage the public and make them allies in protecting Libyan cultural heritage.
لا بالنسبة للحقيبة المتحفية كانت غير مقتصرة على فئة،
بل هي شملت مجموعة من فئات المجتمع، سواء كان طلاب المدارس، الكشافة والمرشدات، النوادي الصيفية، كذلك يعني ضمت شرائح أخرى غير داخل المجتمع. هذه الميزات كانت الحقيبة المتحفية، خاصة تجربتنا مع كفيف والتجربة مع ذوي الاحتياجات الخاصة.
And you know, they've also found that Suitcase Museum has been a powerful way to engage segments of society that wouldn't normally participate in some of these questions, or even, you know, don't even have much knowledge about Libyan cultural heritage or history, including, you know, people with special needs, where these tools have been powerful means to connect directly with different schools. And that it's been an avenue that has actually been able to connect with the public at multiple levels, different ages of students, different, you know, again, people with different needs, but sharing that same central message of protecting Libyan cultural heritage. فشكرا يا انتصار، يعني هذا يعني مقدمة جميلة جدا. وتو يعني طبعا نبدأ بأستاذ طلال. ويا طلال يعني ممكن تشرح لنا شوي أكثر عن دورة المتطوعي يعني في حماية الموروث الثقافي. لماذا المتطوعين عندهم دور خاص؟
As we know, this work is supported mainly on volunteerism. We can't do this work without lots of effort by people, by just normal people, sharing their efforts and their work to make this work successful, really. Because as we know, it's a must be a complete circle. Must be a complete circle. The authorities, the official authorities, has a role in it, and the Antiquity Department, the official Antiquity Department, has a role of it, and the student has a role of it, and the citizens, the normal citizen, must be shared this responsibility for the outreach and protecting the heritage. In fact, we have quite wide experience with the oldest and the largest association for volunteers in Libya, which is the Libya Scouts and Girl Guides. The Libyan Scouts and Girl Guides Association is the oldest association in Libya and the greatest one, widely great, has a big role. We have been doing lots of workshops and big events and even conference with the Scouts. I am very happy. I'm gladly happy now that with us some important partners of this of the previous workshops. I can see here now Dr. Khaled Haddad. He's participating with us. He was with us with lots of workshops in different parts of Libya. Even with the politic conflict now in Libya, but in fact we try to move and work in different places in Libya, and west and east and south. So all this major and the great work, it's difficult, very difficult to can be done without volunteers. We have to believe that this work is, we are like messengers. We are carrying a message. And we are doing the full efforts to encourage people, to encourage citizens and the students and children and even decision makers, the most difficult people in this circle, the decision makers, how to persuade them and encourage them to pay more attention to protect the heritage, which is not belongs only the Libyans. It belongs all the humanities in our planet Earth. So that's a quick summary about the importance of the volunteerism.
Yeah, I think that's very powerful. I mean, throughout all of North Africa and the Middle East, there are often very similar antiquities laws where it's the responsibility of the state to care for these resources. But I think you in Libya have really shown, in a direct sense, just how much goodwill there really is on the part of volunteers who want to be involved in this protection, if they're only given the right opportunity, where they can really partner with local authorities to protect these public resources that everybody cares about. For those of you who are just joining us now, we're just taking a quick moment to go through and give each one of our Libyan participants a chance to share a little bit about, introduce themselves and share a little bit about the work that they've been doing. After we get through those introductions, it seems like we still have a small enough group that we can open it up to a more general conversation. And that will, I'll be monitoring the chat and we'll, hopefully feed these questions. Of course, we have a little bit of, we're working a little bit in both English and Arabic in today's session, so we appreciate your patience in the context of some of these translations. We'll turn now to Dr. Khaled Haddad from the University of Benghazi, Archaeology Department. فيا مرحبا يا دكتور خالد. طبعا بالنسبة للقطع المسروقة في ليبيا، ممكن تعطي لنا فكرة بسيطة عن لماذا هذا تجارة غير قانونية تستمر بهذا القوة توا في ليبيا. تفضل.
في البداية السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أحيي الزملاء المشاركين في هذه الندوة. أيضا قدم الشكر لمنظمة ASOR التي اهتمت بهذا الموضوع وبحماية التراث الثقافي الليبي. وبطبيعة الحال طبعا التراث الثقافي الليبي هذه السرقات اللي حدث في هذا الموروث الثقافي ليست جديدة. والموروث الثقافي سرق قبل 2011. كانت هناك سرقات في التسعينات وفي 2000 وغيرها، ولكن هذه وتيرة هذه السرقات ازدادت. طبعا ازدادت بعد 2011 أحداث 17 فبراير وما تولد عنها من نقص الأمن وفقدان الأمن في كثير من المناطق. فهذا طبعا أدى إلى انعدام حماية المواقع الأثرية، الاعتداء على المواقع الأثرية، الاعتداء على المتاحف، الاعتداء على الأماكن التي بها المقتنيات الأثرية مثل بعض المصارف. هذا هو السبب الرئيسي، هو انعدام الأمن. السبب الثاني أيضا هو الناس اللي قاموا بهذه السرقات، هو انعدام معرفتهم أو تيقنهم بالهوية وعلاقة الآثار بهذه الهوية وبالشخصية الليبية، فلهذا فرطوا في المقتنيات الأثرية وأقدموا على سرقتها. طبعا هو في الغالب لأسباب مادية، لغرض السرقة، لغرض إرسالها خارج ليبيا للتجارة فيها. طبعا بالرغم من وجود قانون في ليبيا عام 1994 والمعمول به ويمنع تهريب الأثار.
Okay, فشكرا يا دكتور خالد. So, in general, well, first of all, Dr. Khaled would like to take a moment to welcome all of you. He's, of course, joining us today from Benghazi, Libya. This question of
هناك دائما سرقات.
أيوة. لحظة بس يا دكتور خالد عشان ترجمة. Again, this question of illicit antiquities trafficking in Libya is of course not a new concern for people who are in Libya today, particularly for archaeologists who have been studying this problem for some time. But it must be said that after the revolution of 2011, that they've seen increased pressure across the country. And Dr. Khaled would like to just highlight several of the reasons why that's so. I mean, the first, of course, is that everybody in Libya right now is living through a period of tumultuous political change. The normal government apparatuses that have been created to enforce the most recent and strongest antiquities law that was published in 1994. Those normal apparatuses have not been able to function in the same way that they were functioning before the revolution. And that's, of course, with the lack of that rule of law, there's been increasing pressure on sites. But secondly, in a real fundamental sense, unfortunately, that direct connection between the people and a lot of these, whether archaeological sites or archaeological connections, has deteriorated through time. So for many Libyans today, there's a lack of direct sense of ownership of this material, a lack of direct sense of responsibility to protect it. And that's one of the reasons why some of these outreach activities are so important right now. And then finally, of course, we see that, given the lack of stability in our country, given the difficult economic situation, I mean, of course, there's an economic incentive for people to both conduct illicit excavations, particularly in eastern Libya and the necropolises of the Cyrenaica, and then try to bring this material to market. And we've seen too many examples of that in recent years. And that was, of course, one of the main points in Dr. Khaled's recorded presentation. فشكرا للدكتور خالد كمقدمة هذا تكفي، بس هنستمر تو مع دكتورة مفيدة. So right now we'll continue with a word of introduction from Dr. Mufida Khadik from the University of Sabratha. يا دكتورة مفيدة، هل تسمع في؟ Okay, so she had joined, but perhaps the link today, the internet in Sabratha is a little spotty, so we'll try and circle back to her at the end. So now let's turn to our colleague in Ghadames, Libya, the UNESCO World Heritage Site of Ghadames. يا قاسم، هل تسمع فيه؟
Hello.
So if you could please give us an idea of the Ghadames Association of Manuscripts and the work that you've been doing to digitize the records of the trans-Saharan trade.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I would like to thank everybody here in this meeting. Actually, I'm attending on behalf of Mr. Qasim, as he couldn't manage to to attend this meeting. We are in Ghdam's Association for Heritage and Manuscripts, are focusing in maintaining and preserving the old manuscripts and documents and old documents in Ghdam city. And as maybe some of you know that Ghdams was as a hub of Saharian trade roads. So there are a huge number of documents in Ghdams. Our aim was to explore, to maintain and explore what these documents and what these letters are, and to show them for the people, for researchers and so on. By working with ASOR, we would like also to thank ASOR for their support, for providing us with the technical equipment which allow us to take I mean a professional way to digitalize these all documents. Also, I would like to highlight that one of, if we could say that as a success story, is we start by our own old documents, and there was an issue here in Ghdams where these documents are inherited by families, and a lot of families in Ghdams are keeping there in their homes where the environment is not, I mean, suitable for this kind of old paper. And after we managed and we did this work, and we have a very active Facebook page, and we have a website. Last 2 weeks, one of Ghdamsi families came to us, and they offered us to work on their heritage, on their letters and all documents. So it was very inspiring that we gained the trust of locals. That's all what I want to say. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. You know, that ongoing work in the Gdamis, you know, it seems to have, again, really forged some new pathways for how this documentation practice might continue, you know, both in Gdamis, but in the larger network that also participated in the history of the trans-Saharan trade. I just received word that our colleague, Dr. Mofida, who's currently in Sabratha, the electricity is a little bit spotty where she is right now, so she's going to continue to find a place where she's able to join us, and we'll have a chance to hear from her directly once she is able to connect. But, you know, I see now that we have, you know, nearly 25 people with us today, which is great. And, you know, this is really an opportunity. I mean, we have right now colleagues who are joining us from Tripoli, from Benghazi, from Gdamis, hopefully soon from Sabratha. This is a great opportunity for all of us to, again, ask direct questions to our colleagues in Libya right now to better understand both the work that they've been doing so far and some of the current challenges that they're facing. So, you know, with that, I'd really like to open it up for more general questions and discussion. And I'm monitoring the chat. So please continue to, you know, sort of go ahead and indicate by raising your hand in the Zoom box, or type your questions in the chat and we'll try to get to them. And as you're doing that, I'll turn it back to our colleague Talal in Tripoli, so that both Talal and Intisar are able to explain to us a little bit more about the scope of the Suitcase Museum project and how the Suitcase Museum is really the first step towards motivating volunteers to actually participate and do simple things like cleaning the sites, like helping their colleagues in the Department of Antiquities stabilize the sites. فتفضل يا طلال.
شكرا جزيلا ويليام وشكرا جزيلا لكل المستمعين. Thank you very much our dearest friend William for this opportunity. I will let my colleague here to talk about their trying over the years about activate the programs of the Suitcase Museum in cleaning the sites and even ترميم الأنفرة مثلا ترميم الأنفرة في سقراط.
Conservation of the amphora, yeah.
Yes. So وحين نتكلم الآن لزميلتنا انتصار، سيدة انتصار من فضلك لو تكلمينا عن تجارب الحقيبة المتحفية خلال 3 سنوات اللي فاتت، لو تحكينا باختصار مثلا على المشاركة في تنظيف وترميم فيلا ماgnus، وأيضا المشاركة في تنظيف أرضية السكساء في حمامات المكتب في سقراط وترميم الأنفرة في سقراط.
بالنسبة لتجربتنا كانت الأولى مع الكشافة اللي هي تنظيف فيلا ماgnus كساء من الأعشاب المدارة بها، فكان التنظيف بطريقة معينة بحيث لا تؤذي كساء. بالنسبة للتجربة الثانية
Yeah, so our colleague Intisar from the Libyan Department of Antiquities is just explaining that, in the context of mobilizing these volunteers, one of the things that the Department of Antiquities has seen, a persistent problem in recent years, is that they don't have an operating budget for simple site maintenance. So at sites around the country in Libya, again, just because it's often a verdant place, particularly along the coast, plants continue to grow every day. Trying to kind of keep on top of that steady biological growth has been very difficult. And that's where volunteers have been successful in working with their colleagues, the conservation team of the Department of Antiquities, which in the context of the World Heritage Site, UNESCO World Heritage Site of Cyrene in Eastern Libya, singled out some specific tasks around the well-known villa of Jason Magnus, where they mobilized a group of volunteers coming from around Eastern Libya to really work on the site cleaning activities, the seasonal work that would normally be done through contracts in previous times. Right now, it's volunteers who are stepping into that role, who with the sort of cooperation and supervision of the conservation team, are making progress in protecting some of the in situ mosaic panels and just kind of keeping the site in a stable place. So that's one powerful example of that.
اوكي، بالنسبه للتجربه اللي كانت خاصه بالطلاب السنه الرابعه قسم الاثار كليه سبراتا، كانت في شهر فبراير. كانت مقسمه الى تنظيف ارضيه كسر الحمامات داخل الموقع الاثري مخصصه لطلاب الصف الرابع. كذلك كان في يوم كيفيه ترميم انفره رومانيه بالطرق الصحيحه للطلاب. ذلك الاستفاده من هذه التجربه عن طريق التنظيف في جميع الاصول بالطريقه الاولى بالدرجات الاول، يعني كيفيه تجميع الانفره، تصنيفها، تصويرها، تنظيف، الغسل، ثم تصل الى مرحله الترميم. كان في ذلك اليوم اللي هي كيفيه التنقيب عن موقع اثري لطلاب كليه الاثار في جامعه سبراتا. كان مشروع التخرج قبل بدايه مشروع التخرج، فكان الاستفاده قويه.
Okay, shukran Intisar. So, another solid example, and this happened just before the pandemic, another sort of volunteer event that took place in Sabratha, Libya, another one of the UNESCO World Heritage Sites, where, very similar challenges, lack of maintenance and lack of budget for that maintenance in recent years has led to the degradation of a number of in situ mosaic panels and just the foundations of a number of, residential and commercial structures that have been uncovered at the site. And, the local University of Sabratha, where, again, we hope that our colleague, Dr. Mufida Khadiq, will join us later to talk about this in greater depth. But the local university, of course, has field work as part of its graduation requirements for archaeology students. And through this volunteer mobilization, these students were able, rather than focusing solely on new excavation, they were focusing on conservation, a new topic for them. And they had the opportunity, again, working with the Department of Antiquities conservation team, to both go ahead with some simple site maintenance and cleaning activities around Sabratha, particularly trying to protect in situ mosaic panels. And they were also able to work directly with the conservation team on the conservation of a small amphora. And that was something that, again, was sort of opening new horizons for these students who had started to learn something about archaeology but didn't know anything about conservation. فشكرا لكم. ويعني عندنا سؤال لدكتور خالد بالخصوص تحريض الثار. فيا دكتور خالد، لماذا يعني طبعا المحاربين يفضل هل هم يفضل الطرق يعني عبر البحر ولا الحدود يعني صحراوي؟ كيف ترى الطرق يعني لهذه التجارة غير قانونية؟ وتفضل. So we're turning now to Dr. Khaled to answer the question that's appeared in the chat about the smuggling routes in Libya, whether or not they're land or by sea. فتفضل يا دكتور خالد.
في البداية نحب أن نؤكد على الجريمة. هي في الواقع أن سرقة الآثار قبل تهريبها هي جريمة، لكن هذه الجريمة تختلف عن جرائم السرقات الأخرى. قد أي جريمة أخرى تقدر نطاقها في داخل البلد، ولكن هذه الجريمة ترتبط بها حلقات أخرى. أول شيء الخشية من تهريبها، طبعا هو الهدف من السرقات هو تهريبها خارج البلاد. فنحن عادة نهتم بأن ألا تهرب هذه الآثار خارج البلاد. سرقت، هناك إجراءات تقوم بها مصلحة الآثار بالتبليغ عنها وغيرها، وتبليغ عنها حتى دوليا، ولكن أيضا هناك اهتمام من خروجها، سواء عن طريق المنافذ البرية، عندنا منفذين نحن رئيسيات، وأيضا عن طريق المنافذ البحرية، المنافذ الجوية. فنهتم بتوعية، المفروض نحن نهتم بها هذه، بتوعية رجال الجمارك، رجال المنافذ، حتى لا تخرج قدر الإمكان هذه الأشياء عندما سرقت ألا تخرج خارج البلاد. النقطة اللي بعدها، حتى عندما تخرج فنحن أيضا نواجه حلقة أخرى وهي حلقة دولية، التواصل مع الدول التي تصل فيها هذه، تعبر من خلال هذه الآثار. فنحن على سبيل المثال من الشرق منفذ مصر مثلا، عندنا من الغرب تونس، قد يكون حتى من الصحراء، ما عندناش معلومات أكثر، ولكن أيضا نحن نهتم بهذا الجانب. وهذا الجانب له يدخل في خارج صلاحيات مصلحة الآثار، يدخل في نطاق وزارة الخارجية وجهات أخرى. أيضا نحن نتعامل مع حلقة أخرى، وهي عندما يصل هذا المسروق إلى خارج ليبيا، فنتعامل مع جهات أخرى، قد يقبض عليه في جمارك إحدى الدول ولا يتم دخوله، أو أيضا هناك إشكالية قد يباع أحد المزادات الدولية زي مزاد كريستي. ممكن نحن خلال أسبوعين هناك تمثال حيباع في فرنسا في مزاد كريستي من ليبيا. إذا هذا ندخل في حلقة أخرى، وهذه كلها حلقات وتحتاج إلى هناك يربطها قوانين دولية وتربطها الكثير من الأمور. أنا حبيت نقول المقدمة هذه قبل أن نرد على سؤالك، وهو ما هي الطرق اللي تخرج بها الآثار في ليبيا. طبعا قلنا الهدف الأساسي من سرقة هذه الآثار أو الآثار التي سرقت خلال الفترات السابقة هو أن تخرج خارج ليبيا ويتم التجارة بها، تجارة طبعا غير قانونية. فلهذا السبب نحن نؤكد على أن نحمي حدودنا البرية. أكثر الأشياء طبعا اللي نحن ممكن عندنا عليه بعض الأدلة أن يتم التهريب بريا أكثر من بحريا، برغم أن هناك أدلة بسيطة غير مؤكدة أن ربما يكون هناك تهريب حتى عن طريق البحر. تناقشت مرة مع الدكتور أحمد حسين، قال إن هناك أدلة عند بعض الجهات الأمنية أن يتم حتى التهريب عن طريق البحر. فطبعا إحنا يجب أن نغطي هذه المنافذ بطريقة جيدة سواء بريا أو بحريا وحتى جويا، نغطيها بتوعية المسؤولين حول هذه الأشياء. طبعا هو بعد تخرج أو تظهر من خارج ليبيا، خاصة نحن في المنطقة الشرقية مثلا عندنا مصر، مثلا مصر تظهر مصر تمشي الأردن وتمشي لإسرائيل ومنها إلى أوروبا. عندنا طريق آخر عن طريق الخليج، هناك كثير من الأمثلة سواء عن
بس للترجمة يا دكتور. Thank you for that question. In answering it, Dr. Khaled wanted to take a moment just to provide a little bit of more detailed background. And I think a lot of the background that he's provided might answer a series of other questions that are also in the chat right now about this illicit trafficking. So first of all, local authorities, and there is, direct channels of communication between the Libyan Department of Antiquities, where Dr. Khaled is in charge of the Eastern section office that's focused on the illicit trafficking and combating the illicit traffic. They have a direct line of communication with the local tourism police, with local authorities at the Customs and Border Protection and the Port Authority. And they're really trying, before things even leave Libya, of course, they're really trying to combat illicit excavation. They're really trying to track before anything even makes it much past that first point of discovery. Trying to really focus on the source of the problem, and they see evidence, of course, too much evidence in Eastern Libya that these kind of illicit trafficking, the illicit excavations are continuing, particularly in the context of a lot of the urban encroachment that is occurring around cities like Shahat and El Beida. But when they recognize fully that, of course, that excavation is happening, people are making discoveries, they are trying to get that material to market. So there's sort of a twofold approach at that stage, and that is both increasing the awareness of members of the local law enforcement who have that responsibility to really try and recognize this material before it leaves the country in their normal protocols of search and seizure. And then in cases where it's very clear that unfortunately this material has left Libya, they have open lines of communication with international authorities such as Interpol, as well as various American authorities like the FBI Art Crimes Team, to really try and press their case when some of this material very clearly Libyan in origin makes it to market, as has recently happened in a case of material presented by the auction house Christie's. They try then, of course, to use other channels, particularly diplomatic channels, to plead their case and try to stop the sale of that kind of material and have it returned ultimately to Libya. To get to the more detailed question of whether or not there seems to be more trade via land or by sea, most of the evidence that they have so far, and again, Dr. Khaled is very clear, the evidence is scarce in this place. This illicit trafficking, the investigations to date have been, relatively modest. Dr. Khaled has been contributing to an ongoing report that ASOR is currently developing and hopes to publish in the coming months about this topic. But it seems right now that most of this trade is happening by land, although they have a little bit of evidence that's recently surfaced that some of this material might also be being traded by sea. فشكرا يا دكتور خالد. تقريبا دكتورة مفيدة تو رجعت وهي معنا. I think that Dr. Mufida, I saw her name flash up on the board, and I just want to see if we can get her to join us and tell us a little bit about the situation in Sabratha. Let me just see if I can find her. يا دكتورة مفيدة تسمع في؟ Well, it seems like I think she has joined, but unfortunately, it seems like the connection is still not strong enough, unfortunately. let's see. So please continue to either raise hands or put questions in the chat, and we can continue to pose them to our group. In the meantime, I wonder if we have Dr. Ahmed Al-Maraj, also from the University of Benghazi. Yeah, Dr. Ahmed, can you tell us a little bit more about some of these questions of both urban encroachment in the Cyrenaica and the role in sort of accidental or intentional discovery of antiquities that are then being trafficked?
So I think it's the best person who could talk about this is Khaled Haddad here that we have. But I've been in touch with some people from the Department of Antiquity at Seirini, and I have gathered some new information, as you see in the media and social media in the last 2 days, that there are some objects that have been captured, we can say, by the police in Shahat. So it's on Facebook now. So this is recently happened, just 2 days ago. And the Department of Antiquity is trying, working very hard with the law enforcement bodies in the region to mitigate this problem. The main problem of looting archaeological objects from archaeological sites is that most of the archaeological sites are located within private lands. So people can walk freely in their own lands, can excavate and dig even in the daylight to look for treasures, particularly in the area around Seirini, the necropolis of Seirini, particularly the southern one. So this is really a very big problem, and but what we do, all of us, I mean, the Department of Antiquity, the universities, the police, and everyone working together to mitigate the issue. So I haven't got any update about the very recent situation. So I have some very little information about what happened over the last few months, but things are need more time. I think as Khaled, as he mentioned in his presentations that I've seen 2 days ago, it's covered lots of things there. And as you know, we are all working together now to ask the Department of Antiquity to highlight things that could be done to combat illicit trafficking of antiquities from the whole country. So we are now in touch with the Department of Antiquity in Cyrenaica and Department of Antiquity in Mauritania and in the south as well.
Thank you, Ahmed. I think that there's very clearly this pressure that just continues to be strong, and sure enough, I mean, day by day, more evidence that the illicit digging continues, and that there are people trying to get this material to market. I see we have a question from Susan Ackerman. So Susan, if you could go ahead and join us.
Well, thanks, Will. And I wanted just to say first hi to Talal and hi to Dr. Al-Haddad, who I was able to make friends with in the past, and it's a delight to see you. I was wondering if, since Noichi couldn't join us, if someone could say more about the status of the survey of the Benghazi Historic City project?
فيعني طبعا للاسف ما عندناش فيديو ريفي من مركز المدن التاريخية، بس يعني طبعا ممكن انتم يعني الذين موجودين في بنغازي ممكن تشرح لنا شوي اكثر عن الوضع في بنغازي، وكيف يعني كيف الحوار يعني حول مستقبل المدينة توا.
ممكن can I just say something in this? So I would like first to welcome Professor Fouad Tahir, who's sitting with Nasser Harari, the screen down there, and Mr. Nasser Harari. They are joining us from Apollonia now, and we'd like to welcome them for joining us. So for the Historical City of Benghazi Authority, so 2 days ago I met with Nweji Al-Arafi in the Department of Antiquity of Benghazi, and he showed me in his phone that this authority is working to create a plan to restore the city. So they have the plans and the everything about the project, that they're just waiting for the government to grant the fund to start restoring the town. So they have recorded over 90 buildings, individual buildings in Benghazi itself to be restored. So they assess the conditions of the sites of the buildings, and they put together a plan to intervene, how to protect the site, and how to what we can do, at least to stabilize the current situation of the building that have been damaged by during the war in 2014 till 2016. So the Historical City Authority in Benghazi have the plan, but the problem that action needs to be done, and without money, this won't be happen soon. Yeah.
Ahmed, maybe you could also tell us a little bit more about the museum plans you recently heard about.
Yeah, so I heard from the controller of Department of Antiquity at Benghazi, Mr. Hani Abdali, that the municipality of Benghazi has granted the Department of Antiquity just less than 5 million Libyan dinars to start building a museum in the city that lack museum. It's to give them the money. And I heard from Hani that the location of the museum has been allocated, you can see, and it's in the center of the town, just where the Khaled and Fuad Nasser know the location is just where the academy, the High Studies Academy, in Sabri, where the hotel of Nahda and the places. It's just in the center of the city, and the location is perfect, just perfect. I mean, it's more than 4,000 square meters that had. So they have the place now, they have the location, they have the money, and they are working now in the designing and planning, sketches and other engineering stuff to start. This money won't be enough, but at least it would give the start to build the museum, and we may get some more funds from here and there to finish the.
That's really positive news, Ahmed. Yeah, thank you for sharing it. And now I think Dr. Mofida from the University of Sabratha has been able to join us now. So let's just see if we can get her to tell us a little bit more about the work that they've been doing. يا دكتورة يعني تسمعنا؟ Well, it seems like the connection in Sabratha today is really problematic, unfortunately. I would just like to say, recognizing that we're getting down. أيوة تفضلي يا دكتورة. لا للأسف ما فيش نصيب، ما فيش رابط يعني. So unfortunately, we're still not really able to connect to Sabratha, but I recognizing that we're now down to the last 10 minutes or so of this session, I just want to bring your attention to the link that ASOR's Executive Director, Andy Vaughan, has put in the chat. There will be an opportunity to continue this conversation at 3 p.m. Eastern time. So for those of you who still have remaining questions or remaining interest to engage with all of our colleagues in Libya, there will be a chance to continue later on this evening or this afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. يا دكتورة مفيدة، هل تسمعني؟ No, it seems like we still, unfortunately, don't have a strong enough connection there. So I see another question in the chat that we haven't quite answered, which again relates to illicit trafficking. فيا دكتور خالد يعني بالنسبة تهريب آثار يعني هل يعني حسب على معرفتك يعني في اهتمام خاص يعني من المحاربين ان العملات مثلا هل في يعني عندما تشوف يعني كل يعني الآثار مسروقة، هل حسب على معرفتك يعني هل عندهم اهتمام خاص ان العملة مثلا العملة قديمة؟
بالنسبة هل هناك اهتمام خاص بسرقة نوع معين من الآثار؟ هو بصورة عامة الذي يسرق عادة هو ينقب في مناطق محظورة، أو ينقب هو بشكل غير قانوني. أي شيء يحصل عليه، أي شيء أثري يحصل عليه فهو قابل لتهريبه وسرقته وتهريبه. ولكن نحن لاحظنا من الأشياء، هناك عندنا إشكالية نحن في كثير من الأشياء اللي خاصة في الآثار الإغريقية والرومانية، هي أشياء متشابهة. اللي موجود في ليبيا موجود ممكن في أماكن أخرى، يعني طراز متشابه. فمن الصعب نحن خاصة الأشياء التي تسرق من تنقيب غير قانوني، أي غير أو أشياء غير مسجلة، من الصعب طبعا تتابعها. لكن من خلال الأشياء التي أحيانا في كثير من الأحيان أصبحت الآن يتم القبض عليها قبل في الجمارك وغيرها. عندما تخرج من ليبيا لاحظنا هو التماثيل أو المنحوتات أكثر شيء، خاصة المنحوتات الجنائزية هذه عليها إقبال شديد جدا نلاحظها. كثير من الأشياء تم القبض عليها كثير. عندنا الأستاذ مورغان حصر مجموعة كبيرة منها موجود كانت تعرض في كثير من المزادات وخرجت من ليبيا. إذا هذا المنحوتات أكثر تركيزا. بالنسبة للعملات والأشياء الأخرى فهي عادة يحصل عليها في المناطق الأثرية. طبعا هناك أيضا حتى في الفترات السابقة كانت تباع أكثر شيء. الأطفال اللي عندما يحصلون عليها في المواقع الأثرية كانوا يبيعوا فيها للسواح وغيرها من هذه الأشياء حتى هي الأشياء الخفيفة اللي حتى يمكن تهريبها بالنسبة للعملات. لكن معلش ما نقولش عليها تركيز، لكن هو السرقة بصورة سرقة الآثار بصورة عامة أي شيء له عائد مادي يعبثون في المقابر المغلقة زي ما حدث في شحات وغيرها من المواقع الأخرى، ويحصلون في أشياء متنوعة داخل المقابر. هذه الأشياء كلها تنهب وتهرب خارج ليبيا. عندنا مثال في 2018 تقريبا مواطن من بنغازي قبض عليه في مصر بحوزته أشياء كثيرة جدا، منها عملات، منها فخار، منها أشياء، منها منحوتات، أشياء متنوعة وتم القبض عليه في مصر. إذا من الصعب أن نحدد شيء معين، ولكن احنا حسب الصورة اللي لاحظوها ان المنحوتات اكثر شيء عليه اقبال، وان حتى من الناحيه الماديه اكثر شيء. حتى لو اردنا نحن نقوم بجرد مثلا بالاشياء المقتنيات اللي سرقت من ليبيا، اكثر شيء العملات، خاصه ان كنز بنغازي يحتوي على الاف العملات، حوالي ممكن 6000 عمله. فهي اكثر شيء من الاشياء المسروقه العملات، لان سرقت مره واحده من مكان واحد، وفي الاف وهي متنوعه من الذهبيه والفضيه والبرونزيه. اذا هذا هو بالنسبه
شكرا لهذا المداخله
كانت تنهب.
So in general, to answer the question, one of the questions that's appeared in the chat, is there sort of a particular focus on stealing coins in Libya? Again, Dr. Khaled would like to provide a little bit of broader context, which is just to say that, a lot of the material that seems to be part of this illicit trafficking, it's material that's being discovered, again, through sort of illicit excavations, where whatever happens to be discovered and might be, of some kind of marketable value is, of course, being trafficked. So it's a mixture of material. Now, of course, Dr. Khaled fully recognizes that a lot of the material in Libya, particularly Hellenistic material, Roman material, is very similar to the kinds of material that might be found elsewhere, whether in North Africa or elsewhere in the region of those ancient civilizations. So there is some difficulty in ultimately assigning provenance once the material leaves Libya. But they've seen in the kinds of material that's been intercepted in borders, or that where they have reliable evidence that it came from Libya, it's a whole range of material. Everything, certainly including coins, but also small amphora, Roman era oil lamps. And of course, the sort of the piece of that vast iceberg that has been most prominent and that is really best known outside of Libya is the Cyrenaican funerary sculptures that that have made it to market and have been part of very highly publicized cases, whether in Spain recently or in France or in Switzerland, even material that's made it here to the United States, and thankfully has been returned to Libya through the 2018 bilateral cultural property agreement that exists between our two countries. When it comes to material that's been stolen, material that was part of collections that was already well documented, that's where we see the role of coins be particularly important. So after the revolution in 2011, one of the most notable thefts, the largest theft to date in Libyan history, was the so-called treasure of Benghazi, material that was being kept in the National Commercial Bank in Benghazi. And in the early days of the revolution, in the first couple of months, that material was stolen, and a large part of the total, some 10,000 objects were stolen. The vast majority of that number were, of course, coins, where we have, unfortunately, relatively poor documentation, so relatively few hopes of actually being able to recognize this material in the future and be able to return it to the Libyan people. We're coming down, now to the last few minutes of this session. So I just encourage any other members of the audience who are out there, if you have a last question, please raise your hand or type it into the chat. We're so glad that all of you are with us here today. Yes, go ahead, Ahmed. Yeah.
Mufida to speak at least for 1 minute or something.
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, Dr. Mufida, هل تسمعنا؟
So I just phoned Mufida and we suggested that she could speak over the phone. So
okay.
I can use my own phone, and I brought it here and just give her the opportunity.
That would be great. Ahmed, once you have her on the line, go ahead and wave your hand again, and we'll get her voice in. That would be wonderful. Are there any other questions in the meantime? Again, we're fortunate to have, colleagues joining us from around the country in Libya. Right now, they're facing, considerable challenges in protecting all of these archaeological resources, but as they mentioned in their presentations, they're making some considerable progress. Okay, Ahmed, go ahead. Let's see if we can hear Mufida now.
Trying, yeah.
Okay. For those of you, again, who might be interested in joining us for a long conversation, there is a link in the chat, and at 3 p.m. Eastern time, we will work to try and continue to open up the floor. Let's see, Ahmed, can we hear her now?
Yes, Mufida is online now, so yeah.
Okay.
Speaker, yeah. Speak, Mufida, please.
مساء الخير السادة الحضور، وأعتذر عن التأخر في اندماج الزملاء. مشاركتي في مؤتمر آسور السنوي تتحدث عن تجربة قسم الآثار في كلية الآداب في سباتا عن الحفاظ على الموروث الأثري أو الموروث الثقافي بشكل عام في ليبيا. أعتقد تم عرض البرزنتيشن الخاصة بي. إذا كان في مطلوب مني إعطاء نبذة من مزيد عنه حاضر، أنا مستعدة لذلك، وإذا كان في تساؤلات أنا مستعدة للإجابة على أي استفسار أو ملاحظة بخصوص هذا النشاط والبرزنتيشن بشكل عام.
Okay, so Dr. Mufida, again, sorry that the link has been so weak today, but she'll just encourage any of you with further questions about the situation in Sabratha to follow up with her directly via email, and I will provide her email in the chat. I'm afraid that this session will actually end automatically here in another few seconds or a minute. So I'd just like to thank everybody who's participated. شكرا لكل جميع، يعني طبعا لكل المحاضرين. And again, here at 3 p.m. Eastern, there will be a chance to continue the conversation, but we really appreciate everybody taking some time today out of the Saturday to join us and talk about these important issues for protecting Libyan cultural heritage moving forward. Thank you all, and we look forward to continuing the conversation.